Okay, welcome back, everyone. Now we're covering civilizations in Mesoamerica as we continue our study of commonalities and variations in Africa and the Americas. Okay, there was a lack of interaction with other major cultures, including with other cultures in the Americas. Excuse me, and our focus here is Mesoamerica. There's a development without a large domesticated animals or ironworking. Important civilizations developed in Mesoamerica and the Andes long before the Aztec and Inca empires. And there's extraordinary diversity of the Mesoamerican civilizations, albeit they shared an intensive agricultural technology and economies that were based on market exchange. They did have similar religions and frequent interaction with each other, but the diversity is remarkable. As we get into the Maya now, with the ceremonial centers that developed as early as 2000 BCE, a common culture developed in Central America. And after 1000 BCE, a number of cities arose, but the real flourishing was that of the Mayan culture between 250 and 900 CE. They had a development of an advanced mathematical system, elaborate calendars, the creation of the most elaborate writing system used in the Americas, a large amount of monumental architecture like temples and pyramids, palaces, and public plazas. So the Maya, and even astronomy, the Maya had numerous cities with populations of tens of thousands and impressive architecture, like those massive pyramids. And they developed a sophisticated mathematical system and recorded careful observations of the stars and planets and moon and sun, thus developing their calendar. It also allowed them to predict eclipses and other natural phenomena. And the Maya had the most developed writing system. Now, the Maya economy, their agriculture had large-scale human engineering. There's swamp drainage, terrace farming, massive water management system. And so they could support a substantial elite and artisan class. Their wealth stemmed from this very productive agriculture. And the bounty came from a very carefully and extensively reshaped landscape with terraces, irrigation systems, and the leveled tops. Now, the political system was that of city-states and regional kingdoms, and was highly fragmented. Frequent warfare amongst the city-states, where they captured and sacrificed prisoners, densely populated urban and ceremonial centers, but no city-state was ever successful in creating a unified empire. And those competing city-states and their politics were not imperial like Rome or Persia or China, but they were organized by competing city-states like Greece, for example. And a century of collapse after 840 BCE was due to a collection of different factors. Overpopulation, outstripping their resources, a prolonged period of drought, warfare, and the Maya saw a rapid and catastrophic collapse to their civilization. The population dropped by about 85%, and although the elements of the Maya culture survived, these great cities did not. Okay, and here is a map where we can see the territory of the Maya. They're in green. And now we're going to get into Teotihuacán. And you can see where the city is here in the orange. And those arrows indicate their sphere of influence on other cultures. And you can see that they definitely influenced the Maya. Tikal, Copan, Palenque, Chichen Itza, those are pretty famous Mayan city-states. Okay, the America's greatest city, Teotihuacán. The city began about 850 BCE, and by 550 CE, the population was well over 100,000, maybe even in the upwards of 200,000 inhabitants. But much about Teotihuacán is unknown. The city we do know it was centrally planned on a grid-like pattern, similar to those of the Indus Valley. They had specialized artisans that made crafts, and there's little evidence of rulers or of a tradition or public inscriptions. So it's just a large city, everything working together. And there's a deep influence on Mesoamerica, especially in the period 300 to 600 BCE, or excuse me, CE. And there's directly administered perhaps 10,000 or so square miles. But the influence of Teotihuacán armies spread even as far as the Mayan lands, like what I showed you on that map before. And so it was this planned and enormous city, but it was still a mystery. This huge city north of the Valley of Mexico, it seemed to have been planned from the time of its construction, rather than developing organically or haphazardly over time. Oh, we're growing, we need to add on. That would be haphazard. I was very planned out, and the scale and sophistication of the architecture was extremely impressive. It may have begun, like I said, as early as 150 BCE and reached its height about 550 CE, before suddenly and mysteriously collapsing. And at its height, with about 100,000 to 200,000 inhabitants, it was the sixth largest city in the world at the time, which is amazing considering the lack of technology and domesticated animals and diversified farming that Eurasia and Africa had. But like I said, there's apparently no diplomatic connection with other areas, but they did trade. And there was some copying of Teotihuacan art and architecture. And the Aztec named the place Teotihuacan, known as the City of the Gods. And so that's where its name comes from. And that concludes our civilizations of Mesoamerica. I will see you again for the Andes civilizations.